Okay, hey guys, in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to update a previous ESTEST installation to the latest version of our software using the software tarball packages. So as you can see here, I've downloaded the latest software tarballs of ESTEST that consists of this version number tarball with the ESTEST source tree files, and also this dash third-party tarball with the third-party libraries ESTEST uses. I've also have this ESTEST plugins tarball, and I'm going to be using that later in this tutorial to show you how you can install plugins with the latest version of ESTEST installed. So if we have our previous installation of ESTEST in some local file directory, in this case home local ESTEST, we can take a look at this directory. I'm going to be calling this the ESTEST source tree directory. One thing we can do to check if we really need to perform the software installation is that if we do an ls-a, every ESTEST installation is going to come with this file .hgarchival.txt. And if we cat that file out, we're going to have this line that says tag, and it's going to have the version number for the ESTEST currently installed, and we see that's version 0.9.5. Well, if we go back to our tarballs, we can see that the latest version of ESTEST is 0.9.8.1, and so we do need to update our software in this case. Well, currently we have the previous installation, or the current installation of ESTEST running, and we can see here running on localhost, and we can even have some documents here. The first thing we want to actually do is to stop the Apache web server that's running ESTEST. And so you can go to your Apache either directly or through the startup runtime scripts and just issue the stop command. And we're going to verify that indeed the Apache is stopped here. So we can close that tab. Even though Apache is stopped, the exist database server is actually still running, and we want that to be running throughout the course of this tutorial. What we want to do now is to start up the client shell for exist.db in their source tree. So it looks like this, and it's /bin client.sh. And then just log in with your administrative password. And what we want to do here is to make a backup of the current state of the exist database, just in case something goes wrong with the installation or the reinstallation process. We have a complete record of your documents that are in the database. So the way to do that is go to Tools, Backup, and then you can set the target for the zip archive that it's going to create, and just say OK. And if it already exists, that's fine. Just say yes. And so we can see here that it's created this zip archive of the current state of the exist database. So we can go ahead and close the client shell here. What we want to do now is to basically just blow away the previous ESTEST installation source tree. So one way we can just easily do that and not really remove anything is just to rename this to something else, like ESTEST.old. And what we need to do next is to inflate the new version, the updated version of ESTEST, that source tree. So the command to do that is xf. And we see here it's inflated to this directory. Well, we want it to match the naming convention of the previous installation, so we're going to move that directory name to ESTEST. You can see that's how it was before up here. So we're going to go into that, and again we can cat the .hgarchival file, and we see here we have the latest version of the software. Basically what we want to do now is to go through the steps of the installation again. And so the first thing we do is to inflate in the third-party archives with this command. And normally what you do is you'd go into the interactive installation and just make install, and you can still do that, and that's fine. But if we already had a configuration set from the previous installation that we feel should be working, we can use that in a reinstallation process that is much less interactive. So we can go ahead and copy the old configuration file from the previous installation, .sitepackages myconfig.py, to this new installation .sitepackages myconfig.py, and just now hit the make reinstall command, and then it's going to just ask you for your exist administrative password, so fill that in. And then it's going to ask you if you use the Apache web server to generate the new configuration file for that, and just say yes. And so you can see here that it's generated a new myconfig.sample.py and a new httpd sample.include file. And these files shouldn't really be too different from the old ones, but they may be slightly different. So what we want to do is to copy these new configuration files in place. So cp myconfig.sample.py.myconfig.py, and then you can get the full path for this httpd sample file. And you need a slash in between there. And if we go back to our Apache installation and edit the configuration file here, we can see that we've just included the contents of that include file. And we can just, this is the previous installation, so we can delete that here. Just go ahead and delete these lines. And then we can read in the new httpd sample.include files. So here we have the new configuration file set in Apache. So we can close that. So at this point, everything in terms of configuration for ESTEST, Apache, and EXIST is set up for the new installation. The final step, what we need to do is to retranslate the documents in the existing database so that they match the data in terms of the newest and latest schema versions. And the command to do that is actually to go to your new ESTEST source tree directory, cd into scripts, admin, and then run this script, urrt_all or ur_retranslate_all with Python. And that's not going to take any arguments, so just hit return. And it's going to ask for your EXIST administrator password. Just fill that in. And then it's going to see, you're going to see a progress window of all the retranslations of the documents that it's doing. And it should go through all of them without any errors. So what that did is basically run the translators of all the codes again on the original data, and then replace the data elements of the URXML such that everything is up to date with the latest schema. So basically at this point your ESTEST installation should be updated, and so we can go ahead and go back to Apache and then start up the web server again so we can inspect the new version. So if we go back to localhost/ESTEST, we can go ahead and do the same search, but we can see here that the all the documents are working, and then we have maybe some new features that you haven't seen before in your old installation. And we can go ahead and log in and see that we've come up to date with the latest account manager interface, for example. And that's really going to do it for the installation of the updated version of ESTEST. So we see we now have a link to the plugins sandbox, and if you click on it, it's going to take you to a list of all the plugins that are currently installed. Well, currently we don't have any plugins installed, and I said at the beginning of this tutorial I was going to show you how to install plugins, so let me do that now. So if we go back to our ESTEST source directory and we cd back to where we had downloaded all the tarballs, what we want to do is to inflate the ESTEST plugins tarball. And it's going to inflate to this directory. So if we cd here and examine its contents, it's going to basically have a bunch of subdirectories that are the plugins or the first party plugins provided by Team ESTEST at UC Davis. Now the way to install these is to go back to the ESTEST source installation directory, and we're going to cd into scripts, admin, and in this directory you're going to find a script called plugin.py, and this script basically takes as arguments flag as the administrative password for your EXIST-DB server, and then the full absolute path to the plugin directory you want to install. So for example, if I run python.py-p And so that was the flag for administrator password. Usually you'd put your password here, like password, but since in this tutorial the server doesn't have a password, we're just going to put in empty quotes. And then we're going to give the full path to the to any ESTEST plugin. So that's going to be home tester local ESTEST. So this is the directory we just installed from that plugin's tarball, and say we want to install the band structure plot plugin, we'll just give the path to that directly and hit return. Oops, I didn't actually have the script name on there, so you have to have plugin.py, and then we hit return here. It's basically not going to output anything, and that's just going to signal success that we've installed the plugin. So if we go back to the plugin sandbox and refresh, we're going to see we have the band structure plot plugin installed. Now, if you want to install all the plugins that are located in the plugin directory here, let's say, there is a simple way to do that using a find tool, find command in Linux. So it goes something like find and then the path to the ESTEST plugins directory, and you're going to say -min depth 1 -max depth 1 -type D, and so you're just going to find all the directories that correspond to plugins, and you're going to say -exec python plugin.py. So what we did before for one plugin, we're going to do for all the plugin directories, and again the flag for your administrator password, and then these curly braces to denote for find, and then close that find command and then hit enter, and it's going to go through all of them and then plug in all the install all the plugins it can. For a couple of them you might get these errors, say missing meta XML, and that's okay, you can just ignore those. It just says basically those weren't valid plugins. Well, some of the plugins we're still developing and they're not ready for installation yet, so you can just go ahead and ignore that. If we go back now to the plugin sandbox and we refresh, we can see we have the entire list of all the plugins that were successfully installed, and you can go ahead and run that with really any of the documents you have in your database here. So maybe if we can choose one of these to look at, let's look at this guy here. This guy might have some band structure, let's say, and so we can save that here and post-process the plugins, and we want to look at the spectrum comparison plugin, for example. We can run that, and there's not too many parameters here. We just say run transform, and then we get the nice results of this plugin here for that. So that's really going to do it for this tutorial. So we've gone over how to reinstall ESTEST with updated software from tarballs, and that's basically the process goes that you back up your data from exist, stop the Apache web server, blow away the existing ESTEST source directory, replace it with the one inflated from the tarball. Make sure your paths are the same as they were. So if we had originally installed to local ESTEST, we want to make sure that that's the same path, and then run the reinstallation script with your old configuration file, and that's going to get you working with the updated version of ESTEST. Then we can go ahead and install plugins. That is actually a very general method to install plugins using the plugin.py script shipped with every ESTEST source directory, and that doesn't necessarily have to do anything to do with the update, but once you have updated, you can go ahead and get these plugins in as well and extend the functionality of ESTEST. So we hope everything goes well, and you can always email us at estest.dev@gmail.com if you have questions.